So, what if I told you that personal growth isn't about adding new skills or habits? What if it's really about completely rewiring the very pattern of who you are? Today, we're going to dig into that exact idea.
For the longest time, we've pictured self improvement like this thing on the left. We just collect skills, stack them up like coins in a jar, but that metaphor is just wrong. The reality is so much more dynamic, more like the network you see on the right. Real growth is about reconfiguration. It's about changing the wiring diagram inside you to create totally new ways of being in the world. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. You are not a thing that has learned. You are a pattern that reconfigures. See, every new experience doesn't just add one more coin to the jar. It literally reorganizes the entire pattern of who you are. Okay, so let's get into it. First, we need to understand what keeps you stable. And the secret, it turns out, isn't finding one perfect strategy for everything. It's about this complex, kind of messy, redundant architecture that makes you incredibly resilient. Let's just start with a simple question. How do you manage stress? Seriously, take a second and think about it. I'm willing to bet you don't just have one answer. No, instead, you've got this whole toolkit of overlapping strategies, right? Kind of like the ones here. If deep breathing isn't cutting it because you're just too worked up, maybe calling a friend is the move. If you can't get out for a run, maybe journaling is what you need. It's this variety that keeps you going. And hey, the same exact principle applies when you're trying to navigate a tough conversation or a disagreement. There's no single magic bullet for that either. You've got multiple ways to handle it, precisely because any single one of them could fail. I mean, look at these options. Sometimes you got to be direct. Other times, a quick apology or even just backing away is the smartest play. You have options because the world is complicated and your ability to adapt depends on it. Now, what's so cool is that this idea actually has a name. It's called co-cover control. Just think of it like a safety net with a bunch of ropes. If one of those ropes snaps, the others are still there to catch you. This redundancy, it's not a bug, it's not inefficient, it is the very foundation of your resilience. So now that we've talked about stability, let's look at the engine of growth itself. We're going to see how it builds on itself, creating these profound changes that, once they happen, you can never fully go back from. Think about a moment that just fundamentally changed you. Like the slide says, maybe it was a moment of true connection with someone. You can't just unknow that feeling, can you? You can't go back to who you were before. That experience becomes a brand new foundation. The floor has literally risen. And this happens through something called the ratchet mechanism. Here's how it works. First, you feel safe enough to try something new. Then, if that new thing works, a new pattern starts to form and stabilize. That's when the magic happens. The floor rises. That pattern becomes a new irreversible foundation. And suddenly, you have a new capacity. Something that used to be hard is now automatic, which frees you up to climb even higher and repeat the whole cycle.
Okay, now this is where the idea gets really, really big. This whole pattern of having redundant strategies and this kind of irreversible growth, it isn't just happening inside your head. It seems to be the fundamental way that all complex systems stay alive and evolve. I mean, just start with your own body. You have 2 kidneys, not one. That's pure redundancy. Your immune system has an army of different cells to fight off germs. That's cover control. And processes like healing, that's a ratchet, building new tissue layer by irreversible layer. The same logic is how healthy relationships work. They're not built on just one thing. They're built on all these different kinds of connection. And intimacy itself is a ratchet. Every single act of trust becomes the new floor for an even deeper connection down the road. You can even zoom out and see this pattern in entire economies. A strong economy isn't reliant on just one industry, right? It's diverse with multiple supply chains, so one point to failure doesn't bring the whole thing down. And then things like the internet act as a ratchet, creating a new foundation for businesses we couldn't have even imagined before. And of course, this is the basic logic of ecosystems. There isn't just one kind of bee to pollinate flowers. And ecological succession is the perfect example of a ratchet. You have pioneer species that create soil, which lets more complex plants grow, which then support more complex animals. Each step builds on the last. So, we've seen this universal pattern in our minds, in our bodies, in economies, in nature. What does all this mean for you? How should we think about our own lives, knowing we're part of this same fundamental story? Well, here are the big takeaways. First, growth is messy. It's not a straight line.
You're going to have setbacks, but your built-in resilience is there to help you recover. Second, you can stop trying to fix yourself. You can't. You can only create the right conditions for better patterns to emerge, like a gardener tending the soil. And finally, you got to let go of this idea that there's some finish line you're supposed to cross. Because this is the ultimate shift in perspective. You can stop trying to become some perfected, finished product. You can just embrace the truth, the ongoing process of becoming. That is the whole point. So let's end with this thought. The fact that you're not done, that you're a work in progress, that's not a flaw that needs to be fixed. It is the very nature of being alive. You're ongoing. And that, well, that's the whole beautiful, terrifying, and wonderful point.